If there's no need to be afraid of death, there's no need to be afraid of life. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's my understanding. And that's the way I've lived for the past 30 years. When you no longer fear death, you no longer fear life. Wait a minute, just a second. I'm getting a call from God. Hello. I realize that the messages of conversations with God can create a wonderful life for many, many people, can change life for many, many people, and might even, if it goes far enough, change the world. Realize that your life is not about you. Your life is about everyone whose life you touch and the way in which you touch it.
Can you give us your six-step process, I believe it is, on how to talk to God, Neil?
I'd be happy to. Step number one is
So, welcome to the show, Neale Donald Walsch.
thank you. It's nice to be here with you.
Neil, thanks for doing this. And you've been doing this since over 30 years now, if I'm right, from writing Conversations with God to now. What still motivates you to do these kind of conversations and to still spread the message that you're so willingly giving?
I'm trying to make as much money as fast as I can. So I'm trying to create, huge, huge wealth and enormous riches in my life. And wait a minute, just a second. I'm getting a call from God. Hello. I know, I'm just joking. He knows I'm just joking. Oh,
Yes.
he thinks I'm serious. Oh, okay. All right. Thank you, God. God says I shouldn't joke
Okay.
and I should try to be serious.
No, I really adore your cheekiness. I think that's something we both have in common. So I really also enjoyed I think you called God Flip in your conversations with God.
Yeah. Well, to answer your question in a serious way,
Yes.
I realize that the messages of conversations with God can create a wonderful life for many, many people, can change life for many, many people, and might even, if it goes far enough, change the world. So as soon as we change our mind about the critical questions of life, we don't have to live the life that we've been living on this planet. Because right now we're living like primitives. We're killing each other when we disagree. We're destroying our own environment. We're using entirely the wrong motivations in our day-to-day decisions. We're acting like children, really, acting like 2-year-olds. And so I think the answer to your question is what motivates me to continue doing this work is a thought that maybe if enough people are attracted to this message and to the message that are being sent to humanity by many other wonderful new thought messengers and teachers and authors, Deepak Chopra, Marianne Williamson, Eckhart Tolle, and others, um, that maybe we could turn things around and create a different world for our children and for our grandchildren. Because when I look around the world, Jessica, I ask myself, is this the world I want to leave to my grandchildren? Is this the world I want to leave to my children, where we kill each other and start wars because we can't agree on a boundary line, a geography? So we disagree about where the border is, so we kill 25,000 people to make a point? I mean, what kind of species are we? So, without giving a great big long speech, my answer to your question is what motivates me is my hope that change can come if we simply send humanity a new idea about who we are and why we're here.
Thank you. That's a wonderful message. And first of all, I think it's very interesting that God by now talks to you on your phone. and doesn't talk to your writing anymore, or probably he does both. There are many ways to talk with God, as you mentioned. Oh, there he is again.
Yeah, okay, I'll tell him. Okay, right, fine, goodbye. No, no, leave me alone. Just leave me alone for 5 minutes. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and secondly, I think that's a big question. You asked what kind of species are we, right? And I think you partly answered that in your book, and I think that's a perspective I share because you say that we have been around a very short time in, on a cosmic scale, humanity has just been created, right? So I sometimes ask myself also concerning the question of patience and taking that distant perspective to ourselves, if we are basically a toddler in the universe, I think there are many good stories to tell about humanity that maybe also let us stand in a better light than all those destructive, catastrophic narratives that we see in the media, because I think humanity is quite a loving species. And I think every walking human is a proof of our love because you have children, you know how much sacrifice it costs to just, make them be all right when they grow up. And every living human being is a proof of that love between humans to care for each other and to sacrifice for each other. So I think the question would be, Neil, because you're also so much into language and storytelling, um, could we change not only our individual self-image, but also the self-image of humanity as a whole, as a species, by changing what we put our attention on in the stories that we tell about humanity?
I think the answer is yes, we could, but we need more people to decide to become what I call idea heroes. In history, Joska, we've had several what I call idea heroes. And so we need idea heroes who are willing to say what we know in advance. Most people would either not totally understand or might even vehemently disagree with. Um, so we need more idea heroes like Galileo. Galileo said the earth revolves around the sun. And the Catholic Church at that time, which was the major religious organization in the world in those days, said no. The official teaching of the church, believe it or not, was that the sun revolved around the earth. And the church actually taught that because the church said that the earth and humanity was God's greatest creation, so that the sun revolves around the earth. And they condemned Galileo for declaring that he believed and discovered through his scientific work that the earth revolves around the sun. But he refused to give up his understanding. He refused to cave in to the demand of the authorities at that time for him to change his story. He's what I call an idea hero. And there have been many other idea heroes. Martin Luther King Jr. was another idea hero. And so what we need are more idea heroes who stand up and say, excuse me, but the way we're doing it is not working. And maybe we need a new idea. Maybe we need a new thought. We need to move to a new thought. That's why this is called the New Thought Movement, because we need to embrace a brand new idea of who we are and who God is and why we're here and how we can impact our behavior in a way that improves the lives of all of us and finally brings an end to the way we're acting, because we're acting like 2-year-olds. We're really acting like children. You're correct. We are, according to the age of the entire universe, still in the toddler stage. That's correct. But even toddlers by the age of 6 or 8 start to learn certain things that are true and certain things that are no longer true. And so it's time for us to step up. Joska, I've been traveling the world asking a single question for the past 30 years. When I get in front of an audience, I ask a single question. Is it possible, just possible, that there's something we don't fully understand here about God, about life, and about each other? The understanding of which would change everything? Now, if our answer to that question is no, no, it's not possible. We know all there is to know. It's right there in the book. It's here in the Bible. I mean, in the Bhagavad Gita. I mean, in the Book of Mormon. I mean, in the Talmud. I mean, in the Upanishads. I mean, it's in whatever, whichever one of the books we think we're supposed to be reading. Right now, there are 4,223 religions being practiced on the face of the earth. And each one, I didn't make that number up, by the way. You can Google that. How many religions are there on earth? 4,223 as of 2 weeks ago. So, maybe it's time to have a new idea, because the religion, by the way, I'm not a religion basher. I'm not bashing religions. I'm not saying that religions have it all wrong. I'm simply saying, because there's great wisdom in the world's religions, great wisdom. I simply think, Joska, that they're incomplete. They don't have the whole story. There's more to be known on this subject. And as long as we take that idea into our heart, we've done it in science. Science doesn't stop experimenting when they think they have an answer. We continue to experiment and continue to create new developments in science, which move our species forward. We do it in medicine. Medical research hasn't ended. When we think we have an answer, we question the prior assumption and we move forward with new medical advances. We do it in technology. Joska, when I was 14 or 15 or 25 or even 30, this kind of a thing didn't even exist. I couldn't have imagined having all the data in the universe in the palm of my hand, in the form of a telephone that I could carry with me wherever I went. When I was 25, that was unheard of. So if we're willing to do it in medicine, technology, science, and every other area of life, why are we not willing to do it in theology? Maybe there's more to know in theology as well. So here's what we have to do, Joska, in our approach to theology. We have to question the prior assumption. Maybe there's more to know on this subject. Just asking. Just asking.
So the prime assumption would be the definition of God in the first place?
Yes. The prime assumption is that we think that God's relationship with us is transactional. We think we have a transactional relationship, what we call a quid pro quo relationship. God does this for us, and then we'll do this for God. And if we do this for God, God will do this for us. But if we don't do this for God, then God won't do this for us. So we think that we have like a trade deal between nations. We have a trade deal. We have an agreement. But if we don't do what God demands and what God commands, then we're not going to get what God has offered us, which is life after death in a place called paradise or heaven. In fact, it's worse than that. If we don't give God what God demands, not only will we not go to heaven, we'll actually go to hell. We'll actually be punished for all of eternity, even though we've only been here on the scale of eternity. My lifetime is like 1 second compared to 1,000 years. Proportionately speaking. How long have I been here? I'm 81 years old. 81 years compared to eternity is like 1 second compared to 1,000 years. But God says, no, I don't care. I don't care. You didn't do what you were supposed to do during your 1 second on Earth. So we're going to put you in interminable suffering and, and pain and agony. We're going to put you in hell for all of eternity. Because you know why? Not because you weren't a nice person. Actually, you were a nice person. You were kind. You were generous. You were compassionate. You were an understanding person. You simply joined the wrong religion. What can I tell you? You, you joined the wrong religion. I mean, you even believed in God, but you didn't believe in God in the right way. So we're going to send you to hell forever. And religions, Joska, actually teach that to this very day. This is not an ancient teaching from thousands of years ago. Religions teach that to this very day. Sorry, you're going to hell. Joska, my own brother, my older brother, he was my father's son from a previous marriage. So he was around 18 years older than I am. But when he read my book, he refused to talk to me for the rest of his life. Wow. Because he said I was going to hell. Because my brother was a devout Christian, God bless him. No criticism, he was a devout Christian. But he believed that if you are not a Christian, you're going to hell. If you don't accept Christ as your Lord and Savior, even if you're a wonderful person, you're going to hell. And so he wanted nothing to do with me for the last 20 years of his life.
So this is an intense example of what harm religion, or I think any kind of ideology can do, even to families.
Yes, political ideologies, theological ideologies, social ideologies. Yes, that's exactly right. It's a wonderful example. We've got to be careful about ideologies.
Yes.
Ideologies are killing us. They're separating us. Blacks and whites, gays and straights, men and women, conservatives and liberals. If you don't believe the way I believe, then you're clearly a bad person.
And I think this touches like the idea of, or the illusion of separation, right? Because I find that separation only exists in our heads in the form of language and terminology, right? Because we
Yes,
call
yes.
this that and this that. But in the end, also, as you write in your book, everything is one thing. So there are not really any borderlines between material objects because there are no material objects. And I think this duality, this dualism is something that seems to be a continuous challenge in the human incarnation. But I asked myself, Neale, or what I thought about you, especially you today, Neale, was because I think I heard you mention your very Catholic upbringing in another podcast. And now you're talking about new definitions of God, which we will get into in a second. And I thought of you like being a bridge between the terminologies and between the old way of thinking and relating to God and religion, which obviously came to an end or to a point where it's no longer working for many people. And then there's still the question of spirituality for many people, which they don't really like to connect to religion anymore. But I think that's what you provide in your work, uh, bridge made of terminologies. And maybe you can talk a little bit about your God solution that you talk about in your latest book, Godtalk, but also in your book, God Solution, and what kind of solution God dictated you, so to say.
Yes, well, first of all, I'm not the bridge. I'm simply a messenger. The bridge is the information that's been given to us in the Conversations with God dialogues, over 3,000 pages of back and forth dialogue. So I don't want anyone to think that I imagine myself to be some kind of special person, or oh, Neale is the bridge for humanity to go to a new way of thinking. No, that's not how I see myself. But fair enough, I do see myself as a messenger, someone who brought the message that was dictated to him to share with other people. Now, to answer your question directly, God told me that she is not a transactional figure. He needs nothing. He really is the highest power. He is. We sometimes call God the higher power, but God is the essential essence, I was told, the foundational essential energy of all that is. And in the book of the God Solution, I came up with a 2-word definition of God. I was told that God really is, to use simple language, pure love. God is the energy that we call pure love. Now, Joska, when I say that in front of an audience, somebody inevitably gets up in the back row and says, oh, Neale, we've been listening to you for 20 minutes for you to tell us that God is love. Everybody knows that. Even religions that have differences of opinion on doctrine, they all agree that God is love. And I have to say to that person, my friend, I didn't say God is love. Yes, you did. I heard you. You just said, I said, no. What I said was, God is pure love. Now, my friend in the back of the room will say, okay, what's the difference? The difference is that pure love needs, expects, requires, and demands nothing in return. Nothing in return for the love we receive. Can we believe in a God like that? To even talk of a God like that who wants nothing in return is considered by many religions to be blasphemy. It's called heresy. It's called apostasy. And we can be, in certain countries, actually thrown in jail for saying something like that God demands nothing from us. But pure love needs and requires nothing in order for its love to be sent to the beloved. Joska, we can't even love the person on the pillow next to us that way. We have learned in our species that, as I said earlier, love is a transaction. You give me what I need and want, and I'll give you what you need and want. But if you stop giving me what I need and want, the game is over. We're done. I don't love you anymore. So when we change our idea of who God is, we change our idea of who we are. And, excuse me, as my mother used to say, that's nothing to sneeze at.
Bless you.
Thank you. So I think that we have to
Bless you.
rearrange our thinking on who we are and who God is. If we can agree that God is the source of unconditional love that needs and demands nothing in return, then, and if we agree that we are, each of us, an individual expression of the divine, that every sentient being in the cosmos is an individuation of divinity. There's another revolutionary statement. Every sentient being in the cosmos is an individuation of divinity. Not just Jesus, not just Muhammad, bless his holy name, not just the Buddha, not just Catherine of Genoa or Mother Teresa or Joan of Arc, not just those who we have labeled as spiritual masters, but that all of us are individuations of divinity. And all we have to do is embrace that definition as our truth and begin acting that way in every interaction with each other. And if we all chose to do that, Joska, the world would end the way it's behaving, and the world would change for the better overnight. I could be wrong about this, of course. I could have this all wrong. And if I do, I guess I'm going to hell.
But at least you
But it's
tried.
but it's like George Bernard Shaw once said about hell. All the interesting people are there anyway.
That's true for sure. But Neil, I think you're right, and I think there's no way you couldn't be right because it's a simple logical operation to prove that if there is only one thing, we have to be part of that one thing. And if I can ask this question, then that one thing is asking question. And if that one thing is asking questions, that one thing is conscious. So we talk about one all being that is conscious, a conscious creative universe.
People have a hard time understanding this notion of one thing. So I usually hold up my hand and I say, how many fingers do I have? And the average person would say, well, you have five fingers. I say, okay, are they separate from each other? Yes, well, the average person, yes, they're separate. And then I say, no, they're not. They're not separate. They're individual, but they're not separate. They're all part of the same hand. So they're not separated from each other. They're connected because they're all part of the one thing that your hand is. It's an easy illustration for people to understand. So I often say to my audiences, you know what? We are all fingers on the hands of God, to use a metaphor.
That's beautiful.
Oh, by the way, I'm intrigued. You speak perfect English, but how did you learn the language that well?
I listened to many of your podcasts and I read a lot of English books and I realized a lot of my spiritual journey happened in English. And I'm not sure why that is, but I heard that if you do something in a different language, you might have a chance to bypass blockages in your own mother tongue, in your own conditioning language-wise, because you take another route. And now slowly I'm coming back from English to German and formulating spiritual ideas in German. So this is interesting that I'm now coming home, so to speak. But thank you so much for the compliment because you're definitely a master of language and especially of English. So this is, I feel very flattered. And I also wanted to ask you some personal questions, Neil, um, because I feel that you have given so much in the last. I think the conversations with God came through you when you were 49 years old. Is that correct?
Ja, du hast recht.
And now you are 81 years old. Is that correct?
Ja, du hast recht.
Wow, your German is perfect, Neil. How did you manage to learn German so well?
Im Schule.
In der Schule hast du Deutsch gelernt.
Ja,
Okay, dann können wir jetzt auf Deutsch weitermachen.
ich verstehe.
Du verstehst. Hast du deine Bücher selbst übersetzt, Neil, eigentlich auf Deutsch?
Well, I think I speak English a tiny bit better than I speak German.
Very tiny. You didn't translate your own books to German, did you?
No, no.
Okay.
We had a man who did it in Germany,
Yes.
and he was wonderful.
Yeah.
His name was Joshua.
Hmm. So, Neil, how do you look at yourself after those 31 years, 32 years of writing and of being in this intimate conversation with God, of giving all these gifts? And now you're certainly I think it's fair to say that you're in a different stage of your life than you were 30 years ago. You're 81 years old. I'm 50 years younger than you. So what would you today, from your perspective, tell 32-year-old Neale Donald Walsch? What would be your advice to your younger self?
First, decide firmly and positively who you really are. That is the true nature of your being. Decide, are you simply your body or your mind? Are you simply a mammal, like a whale or a dolphin or an elephant, or maybe more sophisticated, but basically a life form that we call mammals? Is that what you are? Or is it possible, just possible, that you're more than that? That you are a spiritual entity simply having a physical experience? The second thing I would tell myself when I was 30 is, if you decide that that's true, that you're a spiritual entity having a physical experience, then you will want to ask yourself, why? Why, if I'm a spiritual entity, if I'm what we call in some places a soul, if what I am is a soul or a spirit, why in the world would I put myself into this environment and live in this body? And so I wish I had learned when I was 30 that the reason is I come to the realm of the physical in order to experience through the demonstration and expression of it who I really am. Because I can know who I am in the realm of the spiritual, but I can't experience it for a very interesting reason. There's nothing else. In the realm of the spiritual, all there is joy, peace, love, divinity, blessings, goodness, kindness. It's paradise. We call it paradise for a reason, because it is paradise. But what's interesting is that if I want to experience myself, not just to know myself intellectually, but actually have an experience of it, I need to encounter that which I am not. And that's why I've come to the realm of the physical. Because in the realm of the physical, that which I am not exists. A simple example that I like to use, that God invited me to use. Joska, I'm 6 feet tall. As it happened, I'm 6 feet tall. But the only reason I know that I'm 6 feet tall is because the tree outside is 35 feet tall, and the grass in the backyard is 6 inches tall. In other words, if everything in the world was 6 feet tall, every building, every blade of grass, every tree, every other person, if the entire world, everything in the world was exactly 6 feet tall, I could know that I was 6 feet tall, but I could not experience what it's like to be 6 feet tall, because there's nothing that's not 6 feet tall. So God says, I solved that problem. We created paradise in 3 realms: the realm of the spiritual, the realm of the physical, and the realm of pure being. In the realm of the physical, that which you are not exists. And in that way, you can know who you really are, and you can experience and demonstrate who you really are. So what would I say to myself? If I could talk to my 30-year-old version of who I am, I'd say, Neale, when you encounter that which looks like what you are not, remember that underneath it all, it is simply another version of you. Your little finger does not look like your index finger, but they're all part of the same hand. And when you understand that, you will have grasped the ability to demonstrate who you really are. And Joska, That's what every person who we have called a spiritual master has done in their life. That's what the guy called Buddha, his original name was Siddhartha Gautama, and they ultimately wound up calling him the Buddha because that's exactly what he did. He simply used his life to demonstrate that he understood his true identity. That's what Jesus did. That's what Moses did. It's what Muhammad did. It's what Catherine of Genoa did. It's what Teresa of Avila did. It's what the Blessed Virgin Mary did. It's what all those people who have understood the deepest mysteries of life have done. It's not like we don't have any examples. We've been given plenty of examples. We're simply not following the examples we've been given because we're still acting like 2-year-olds. But if I could talk to my 30-year-old, I would say to my 30-year-old Neale, Neale, do you want to have a really wonderful life, a gentle life, a joyful life, a life of abundance, not just financial abundance, but abundance of love, abundance of kindness, abundance of happiness? Do you want to use this life in a way that demonstrates and expresses your true identity? If you do, understand who you really are and then experience that in your day-to-day life. That's what I would say to my 30-year-old. Or in one sentence, Neale, there's more going on here than meets the eye. Or as Bill said, one of my favorite authors, Bill, he said in a play that he wrote called Hamlet, he said, there are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. There are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in your philosophy. There's more going on here, Neale, than meets the eye. But really, there's only one single question, to quote Bill again: to be or not to be? That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to rise up against the sea of troubles, and by opposing to end them, to die, to sleep, perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come when we have shuffled off this mortal coil? Let that be our question for the day. I could, of course, not understand any of this. I could be wrong about all of it. Don't listen to me.
I think then you would be wrong alongside many great spiritual teachers. I don't think you're all wrong. I think you're all right. And also, as you say in your book, it's like, to me, it was quite a revelation to discover that basically every major spiritual teaching points to the one fact of being basically this cosmic consciousness in our essence. And it seems like religions found different ways or stories or narratives, terminologies to help us access it. But it was super new to me that this is basically what everyone is talking about. So everyone is
But the sad,
talking moment.
but the sad thing that religions have done, uh, Joska, the sad thing that religions have done is they've made each other wrong. Not all religions, but many of them. Many of the religions have said, you don't understand. We have the story right. We are the one true religion. Every other religion has got the story wrong. And as I mentioned 20 minutes ago, one religion actually says it's so wrong to believe another religion that you're going to hell if you do it. God will send you to hell if you simply grew up in a culture where you belong to a different religion. I mean, come on, folks. Come on, please. Really? This is the God of love that we believe in? So I've often been asked, what's the single most important message you ever received in your conversations with God? And I can tell you that it's a 5-word message. A 5-word message is the most important message God ever sent me. You've got me all wrong. Folks, you've got me all wrong.
Start again, I guess.
So if we can get to a place where we believe that God loves us the way we love our own children, for whom we would do anything without asking anything in return. I mean, I hope that's how we would treat our children. If we can believe in a God who's at least as nice as my grandma, then we can come closer to understanding the foundational truth that can change life on this planet forever for the better.
Do you think, Neil, that because you have this new definition of God as pure love or unconditional love, and I really like the definition because it contains a very interesting mechanism, which is it connects God to something that we know inside of us, which is love, right? So with that definition in mind, there's no possibility left to place God anywhere outside of us, because in the definition itself, it contains something that we carry inside of us. So I really like that. And you also spoke about how we are more like fingers on the hand of God than really separate beings. Um, and now the question is, me as a 32-year-old, having heard your advice, your guidance to your younger self, accept that you are more than you think you are. Accept that you're a spiritual being. And then the question is how to live this life, how to use this incarnation, and how to receive the guidance that might be coming through us. And you give a very specific manual, I would say, in your book, um, on how to talk to God and how to receive those messages and how to have this dialogue. And maybe you give us your 6-step process, I believe it is, on how to talk to God, Neil.
I'd be happy to. Step number 1 is possibility. We have to agree with ourselves that it is possible that there actually is a God. We have to believe in God. And we also have to believe that it's possible to have a conversation with God, that God is not someone who never speaks to us and who won't talk to humanity. You know what's interesting? Most people who believe in God know that God does speak to people. We agree that God spoke to Moses, God spoke to Muhammad, God spoke to Jesus, God spoke to, Catherine of Genoa and Teresa of Avila. God, nobody questions that God actually has spoken directly to human beings. We just don't think that God would speak to us because, maybe God talks to the Pope. The world got all excited a week and a half ago when Pope Leo XIV became the new leader of the Catholic Church. And most people believe that, yeah, well, God does talk to the Pope, but he wouldn't talk to Joska, for God's sake, much less to Neil. But God says, I'm talking to all of you all the time. So step number 2, after we embrace the possibility that God would talk to human beings, is we embrace our worthiness, that we are worthy to be spoken to by God, that God doesn't only talk to the Pope or the Archbishop of Canterbury or the chief ulama or the head rabbi. God speaks to people even as terrible as Neale. Step number 3, willingness. Once we realize that we are worthy to be spoken to by God, we have to be willing to receive the communications and not deny them. Because most, as I mentioned a few moments ago, most of the world's religions tell us that if we go around saying that, God's talking to me, God is speaking directly to me, those religions will tell us that we are blasphemers, that we are apostates, that we are heretics, and that we are dangerous because we actually have been saying that God talks to all of us all the time. So we have to be willing to overcome the humanity's bias against the idea that God talks to all of us. Step number 4 is wakefulness. Once we decide that we're willing to receive communications from the divine, we must be awake. Stay awake, because the communications come to us in 100 different ways across 1,000 moments in many different lifetimes. A chance meeting with a total stranger on the street, the conversation you overhear at a coffee shop. We call these communications from the divine women's intuition, or an epiphany, or I had a psychic hit. We have different words to use because we don't want to say I had a conversation with God this morning. So, but stay awake. Step number 4 is stay awake. Whatever you call it, listen and watch the incoming energy. I had something interesting happen to me a few years ago, Joska. I was at a stop sign at a railroad crossing.
Shortly, your camera is stuck again.
Oh, okay.
Just a second. Sorry for interrupting you.
That's okay. I had an interesting conversation a few years ago. An interesting experience. I was driving along and I was at a stop sign at a corner at a busy street. And I was about to pull out because, it was time to go. But for some reason, I don't even know why, I was just slammed on the brakes. I heard in my mind, stop. So for no reason, I just slammed on the brakes. And just then, some kid, he must have been 16 or 17 years old, driving a car, zipped through the intersection from left to right. He must have been going 90 miles an hour. I'm not kidding. He was just racing through the intersection. If I hadn't stopped at that point, I wouldn't be here to have this conversation with you. Now, what was that about? So stay awake. Listen to the many ways in which the divine is talking to us. Step number 5, acceptance. Accept that what you are receiving is information from the divine. Come to a place where you agree that life informs life about life through the process of life itself. And don't reject the information that you're receiving. And finally, step number 6, discernment. Be able to discern or tell the difference between, tell the difference between conversations with God, and other information that's coming to us in 1,000 different ways from 1,000 different sources, especially these days with the internet, which is totally different than what it was when I was a child. When I was as young as you, because you're just a child, when I was as young as you, we didn't have an internet. We didn't have information coming to us from 5,000 different sources every day. But now we do. So we have to be discerning. We have to understand the difference between what's coming to us from a source that is divine and what's coming to us from another source that has nothing to do with divinity. And that's what people are doing right now who are watching this podcast. People are deciding right now, does any of this make sense? Or is Joska just talking to some insane person in the United States? But I don't want people to think, that I'm insane Because I speak a strange language or because I have a weird sense of humor,
Yeah.
you know? So I invite people to just listen to what's being shared here in this program. And if it makes sense to your soul, take a look at it more deeply. And if it doesn't make sense to your soul, really throw it out. I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything.
Hmm. So thanks, because this is a very clear and actionable process that basically anyone can take to get into this connection and conversation. And I think also in your book you mention under the point of discernment to use our intuition or tummy feeling to check whether, or to use our physical intelligence, let's put it like this, to
Yeah, that's correct. I
verify.
talk about the tummy knows, like I call it, I give it the tummy test. Your tummy knows, your stomach knows. You know, if you want to know what you're hearing right now on this podcast, if you're a viewer who's watching this podcast, listen to what your body is telling you. Your stomach will say, oh, nah, this is nonsense. This is nonsense. Don't believe a word of it. Or your stomach will say, you know what? This makes total sense. I believe that God is pure love and needs nothing. How can the highest power in the universe need anything from us in order to be happy enough to bring us back to heaven? Is God really transactional? Is that the kind of God we have? You give me what I want and I'll give you what you want. Otherwise, you're in big trouble. I mean, truly. So, but if you believe that, yes, yes, that's the way it is, Neale. That's the way it is. Then I'm not trying to convince you of anything. Step into your highest belief about the divine. My highest belief about the divine, God loves us without limitation, without condition of any kind. I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
You also speak about the greatest idea ever in your book. Can you tell us about that idea? Do you
You
know?
are made in the image and likeness of God. That's the greatest idea that we have ever been given. You are made in the image and likeness of God. That is, as I mentioned a few moments ago, every sentient being in the cosmos is an individuation of divinity. Now, if it's true that I'm made in the image and likeness of God, that means that I can create my own reality the way God creates God's own reality. So, how do I do that? Which is why the last 5 chapters in the book, The God Solution, offer a short course in metaphysics, how to use the metaphysical power that God has placed inside of every sentient being to generate the outcome that we wish to experience in our life.
Can you talk a bit
Thought,
more about that? Hmm.
your thought, your thought is your most powerful metaphysical tool. What you think is true will wind up being true in your experience. Thought, word, and action. What you think is true, and then what you speak. And after what you speak, how you act. Thought, word, and action are the 3 tools of creation in the metaphysical toolbox. So if we use thought, word, and action, then we discover that, oh, that's what every spiritual master has ever done. They have an idea in their mind, they speak it out loud, and they act the way they speak. That's all they all do. That's what Buddha did. That's what Jesus did. That's what Muhammad, blessed his holy name, did. That's what Moses did. That's what Catherine of Genoa did. That's what Elizabeth of Hungary did. They had a thought, they spoke the word, and they stepped into actions that reflected what they chose to experience.
Let's talk a little bit about that action part, Neil, because you also have something that you call casting the iron while it's hot in your book.
So yes, so we simply use the ideas and the thoughts and the words and our actions as people in a factory would cast the iron and create what they want to create in their life. For instance, and one of the ways to do that is to share with you. At one point, when I was around 63 years old, I was no longer in a relationship. I had some failed relationships. I was sad about that. But I began to decide, my perfect relationship is coming to me now. My perfect relationship is coming to me now. It's one of the statements that I've often made to myself. All the money I need is coming to me now. Everything I've ever wanted in life is coming to me now. And not that I'm greedy, because I want to share with as many people as I can all that's been given to me to share. So I began saying to myself, my perfect relationship is on its way to me now. And I don't know, 2 or 3 months later, we were having a little party at my house, and my son actually brought some friends of his. And there was a young woman who was the age of my oldest son. She was 35. And I was at the time 63. But we took one look at each other. She told me later. We took one look at each other and said, oh boy, here we go again. We've been down this road before. And I had the courage to ask her a week later if she would mind having dinner with me. And she agreed. We had dinner. We had a lovely date. So I asked her for a second date. Would you enjoy next week going to the theater with me? So we went to the theater to see a show together. And on the way to the theater, she turned to me in the car. She was in the passenger seat and she said, I think we should be married. And I looked at her and I said, you don't want to say that to me twice. She said, no, I'm serious. I think we should be married. We like the same food. We like the same, uh, activities. We'd like to go to the theater. We have the same philosophy. We have the same spiritual ideas. We're compatible in other important ways we've discovered. I think we should be married. I reached across the front seat of the car, shook her hand, and said, done. Joska, that was 17 years ago. I'm married to the woman of my dreams. Did I create that? Well, I think we both did.
And you casted the iron while it was hot.
Yep.
Okay. And it seems to still be hot, right? Because you
Well,
said,
believe me, she's hot. I promise you. She is really hot.
I bet she says the same about you, Neil. Um, so I think I also want to ask you maybe a little personal question, Neil, because you quoted Shakespeare before, right? And I don't really I won't be able to quote on point what Shakespeare wrote or what you said, but the last line was something about what will happen to you after you leave this body, right? Um, so
What dreams may come.
thank you. Can you give us the full line again because it was so beautiful and poetic?
Ah, to die, to sleep, perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub. For in that sleep of death, when we have shuffled off this mortal coil, what dreams may come?
Dreams may come. What dreams may come, Neil, after death?
There is only one dream, the dream of returning to the blissful, joyful, completely encompassing embrace of the divine. When we die, we don't really die. We simply have a change of address. We simply go to be home with God. I actually wrote a book titled Home with God. And we can end our program today with my mother's final words to me before she passed. She was 63. She was dying at a relatively young age, but she had some illnesses, and we went in to see her. We knew it would be the last time we would see her. And she looked at me and she said, "Sweetheart, promise me one thing." She knew, of course, that she was dying. And I said, "Anything, anything, mother, anything. What do you want? What can I do for you?" She said, "Dance on my grave. Celebrate. I know where I'm going. Celebrate. Do not weep for me." And you know what? I did. 3 weeks later, I actually went to her grave site, made sure that no one was looking so that no one would think I was being totally sacrilegious. But when no one was watching, I did a little soft shoe, little tap dance, danced on her grave. This is for you, Bob. I'll see you when I get there. What happens after we die? We join all those who have loved us, and we rejoin God, and we experience eternal bliss. And then we decide, if we choose to return to the physical, to experience and to express more of who we really are, which is also blissful and heaven on earth. That's what I said to my wife when I was going in for my open heart surgery. I had open heart surgery about 10 years ago, and it's a major, obviously, a major operation. But as they were wheeling me into the operating suite, the doctor said, "You may have a few words with your wife before you go in." So my wife came up to me, and I'm lying there on the table with the wheels on it, and they're ready to wheel me into the operating room. And my wife said to me, "Aren't you even a little bit scared? You don't even look a little scared." I said, "Honey, only one of two things can happen. Either the operation is a failure and I die on the operating table and I go to God in heaven, or the operation is a success and I go home and I'm in heaven with you." She gave me a little gentle poke in the arm and she said, "Only you could be romantic at a time like this."
I know why she wanted to marry you, Neil. So it's so great to see you and to experience you so cheeky, with 81 years old, but you more seem to be like a 60-year-old energetically or 50-year-old. I don't really see you leaving us anytime soon, Neil. And still, I'm glad that there obviously doesn't seem to be anxiety left of leaving this planet and of mortality itself. And I guess, Neil, last question. If there's no need to be afraid of death, there's no need to be afraid of life. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's my understanding. And that's the way I've lived for the past 30 years. When you no longer fear death, you no longer fear life.
Good. So I don't fear the end of this conversation, Neil. I thank you so much for your time, your attention, and your willingness to connect. This is a true gift from you to the Yashka Talks podcast. And thank you for all your wisdom, Neil. I'm sure we'll meet again, whether in this lifetime or in union with God. And yeah, any last words to share with the audience, with the world, with humanity for today?
Realize that your life is not about you. Your life is about everyone whose life you touch and the way in which you touch it. Thank you, Jessica. I've enjoyed being here with you. Blessings.
Thank you, Neil, and goodbye.
Bye for now.